Greetings, my name is Nikolai, and in this very easy guide, in fact, I will show you how you can connect OBS with automation platforms like Integromat, Zapier, and so on, and have them work both ways. So you can trigger something in OBS from Integromat, and the other way, trigger a scenario in Integromat from OBS. So this practically allows you to automate OBS and connect it to any app and workflow out there from anywhere in the world. The good thing here, there's no need for any port forwarding, or there's no coding, no APIs, no websocket or remote access fancy stuff needed. So this is a very easy and effective way of doing it for like the normal guy on the street who doesn't want to fiddle around with coding and the server setups. But even though this is like easy, so to speak, it's really powerful. You can basically make any automation you want. So a quick demonstration then. So I have Google Sheets here. This is not anything local. I could sit in Africa. I'm in Norway, by the way. That's where I live and where I'm from. I could sit in Africa, open these sheets and press switch to scene2, and the OBS on this machine would then switch to scene2. And so it also works the other way. You can have something happen in OBS which will then trigger an external app. So here we have Slack, and I'm gonna just press start record, and instantly it's gonna shout out, recording has started, be quiet, just like that. And I could also trigger a record by typing this start record message, and it will start recording. So it works both ways. Okay, so how the heck does this work without any need for coding skills or fancy applications and servers? And well, I'll show you right now. I'm kind of proud of myself of figuring this out, kind of MacGyver solution. So that's why I'm eager to show you all. So essentially we're using this really good plugin called Advanced Scene Switcher. So you can go ahead and download that right now. It's in the description. It's just a easy install setup. So we are under the macro section. So yeah, basically Advanced Scene Switcher allows you to create a bunch of macros. You know, if this happens, then do this. Normally it's all within OBS. So let's say when a video is done playing, switch to another scene, you know, stuff like that. But you can kind of hack this and make it trigger stuff in Integromat, or now called make.com. And the other way, we could have an Integromat or make scenario trigger a scene switch, like you saw. So in the example you saw, when I press this button, it will send it to Integromat and then send it to OBS. But you're wondering how? And I was wondering the same for many days until I found like pretty neat kind of solution to it. So if we take a look at this switch to scene2 using Sheets, we are using Dropbox as the middleman between OBS and an automation software like Integromat. So this says, if file, local file, which is this Dropbox file, matches the text switch to scene2, it will switch to scene2. That's how this macro works. So if I just run it, you can see that's that's what it does. So then we're using Integromat to overwrite the text file with this command. So here I have a very simple scenario. So it says it's watching for changes. So whenever I do something here, it's considered a change and it will run. And I've made a filter so it will only run when the checkbox is checked or true. That's what the value is, true or false, as you can see. So it will only continue when the checkbox is true. And then it's gonna overwrite this very same file that I have here. So when I tick this box, it's gonna input this into this document. And I have Dropbox installed on my local computer. If that wasn't clear, you need to have Dropbox installed. And I used Google Drive first, but Dropbox is a lot faster with the syncing, so it's more real time than Google Drive. But you can, of course, use Google Drive, but if you want kind of more real time, then you want to use Dropbox. And immediately after, it's just gonna clear the text file, just be empty. So that's like the standard state. I mean, and that's kind of all there is to trigger something in OBS. So if I kind of split this in two here, and so when I tick this box, it's waiting for that, and it's gonna overwrite the file. This file is gonna have this text in it. So if I press it now, there you go. And if I open this file now, oh no, it just cleared, of course, so you couldn't see it, but now it did switch to scene 2. And so the other example, it's the exact same thing. So we just basically use another kind of trigger word. So here I use start record. So if this file contains start record, it will start record. And here I have Slack. So these two are the exact same. It's just listening for an event, and if the text I put in here matches, it's gonna write start record to the file. So just to demonstrate again, start record here, and it's gonna start recording. And that's pretty fast if you ask me. So all this is doing, as you can see, it's very simple. When I type a message, it's just updating a Dropbox text file, just a very normal text file. And OBS will trigger stuff based on the contents of this text file, which we have complete control of. So what about the other way? How can you trigger an external app from OBS? How can you send a Slack message? How can this message be sent when you press start recording? And I'll show you that now. It's almost the same thing, but we're not using Dropbox. So here we have send record message. So whenever we hit that record message, that button, it's gonna trigger. So this says if recording running. So if we press this button, it will run curl. And I'm not a program expert, so excuse me if I cannot explain this. It's just a way to send kind of web requests, that's kind of the noob version of it, which is installed like a native Windows app. So it basically just sends a request. So what we're doing here in the make, I'm gonna call it make, although it was formerly called Integromat, just so you know. And this could be Zapier or Zapier or however you want to pronounce it, or any other app which can trigger on based on webhooks. We're going to use webhooks. So webhooks are just kind of a way to transmit simple data. So you can create a webhook and you will get this URL. We're gonna copy it and paste it in here. And it is just telling this Slack module to type this message: recording has started, be quiet. And that's all it does. So if I run this, so when we start recording, it's gonna send a request to that URL, which will trigger this. So if I press start record, you can see instantly. And it sent a message. And the genius thing, okay, how if we make another action, so let's say, I'll just make one from scratch here. We want to low volume warning. So if like a video, if the volume is very low or something, you want to be alerted. If audio of this media source is below 45 decibels, which is really, we want to run curl.exe arguments will be this address. So I forgot to tick this. Perform actions only on conditions change. So that means it will only send one trigger when this matches. If it's not ticked, then it's gonna spam this command whenever it is below 45, instead of just sending it once. So that's very important. You want perform actions only on condition change. Okay, so how do we filter? How do we send like different messages? So what we can do is just add a router and do some filtering. This is where kind of the genius thing with these URLs, you can add kind of parameters. So let's say here in the recording, we add a parameter. Trigger word is recording started. Okay, and let's run this module once. I'm just gonna run a macro. And you can see the output is there, a trigger word recording started. So now we can filter this. So it will go this way if the trigger word is recording started. Send record message. Just going to rename so it's easier to follow along. And it will go this way if the trigger word is low volume. And we can add Slack, create a message. In general, low volume warning, be aware. Super fancy OBS bot. And in the low volume warning, we'll just add that. Trigger word low volume. So now you can see if I run this once, if I trigger this record message, it's gonna go up. And you can see here recording has started, but if it's a low volume warning, it's going down. So you can see all the potential this has. You can add infinite triggers, and you can have everything in one scenario. And you could also have OBS decide what the Slack message will be. So we can just remove this. And instead of typing it in manually for in the modules, you could actually pass the text you want to be sent with the very same URL. You could just add another one. So, and text equals, and then your text. So low volume warning. You can't have spaces in URL, so the plus will act as a space. So if I just run this once and run the macro, you can see it now have two outputs, the trigger word and the text. And so in your Slack here, you can choose that the text will be the text that comes from OBS. So doing it that way, you don't really need the filter at all. You just need one you just need to reference this text. And if we in the record here add the same thing, text recording has started. And let's see it in action. We're gonna press start recording. All right, we need to remove the filter because the filter is not needed anymore. So if I just do it again, because the filtering now occurs with this parameters we're adding here. So if you start record, it's going to send recording has started. And if the volume here goes below 45, there you have it, the low volume warning. So you can see how powerful this is. You can automate anything back and forth. I don't have any good use cases on top of my head right now, but there's so much potential. So you could have like a producer in Sheets enabling lower thirds, enabling sources from within Google Sheets. And another really powerful thing I have to mention is that advanced scenes, which allows you to not only trigger stuff within OBS, but also outside of OBS. So you could say, like I'm doing here practically, that's how this all, works. It's, looking at the contents of a file, but you could also, if process, whatever Premiere Pro is running, you could send an action, a Slack message. So I think that's what I have for you today. Thank you very much for watching, and please let me know if you found this helpful, or if you're going to use this in some way. I would love to see your workflows and use cases. So if you feel like following along with what I have in mind in the future, you could always drop a like and perhaps a subscription. That's it for me. Have a nice day.